I don't even know, 10 years now. And if you think of hiring, you got to break it down into interviewing, onboarding, training, and managing. So with interviewing, we call it our CARE interview process: communication, attitude, red flags, and experience. So we learned that when you just hire people for experience, a lot of times it doesn't work out. There's other things that you need to care about. So they need to be able to communicate at a high level. They, yes, obviously speak English, because I only speak English, but they have to be able to understand what you're saying and get on the same page quickly and not go in circles. If I'm communicating with someone on Slack, they need to be able to respond quickly and not waiting 5 minutes in between response time. They have to be able to use things appropriately. So email me when it should be emailed, Slack when I should be emailed, or Slack when I should be Slack. For attitude, we try to avoid people that only care about money. There's always people out there that can pay your VAs more than you can. So if you're only competing on money, that's a tough place to be. We want people who care about growth, who want to be leaders, who care about self-improvement, who read books on the side, who learn just for fun. Those are the kind of people that we look for. And to kind of add one last thing, and I'll let you jump in here, red flags. A lot of times when people interview, they're looking for the right answers. I once took a college class on how to BS interviews, essentially. People are good at that. So you want to be looking for the wrong answers. What is someone telling me that shows they don't have the communication that I need in my company, that they don't have the right attitude, they don't have the experience that I need? That's what I'm doing for the interview. And when a red flag comes up, I'm digging into that. I want to find out more before I move forward to the next question.
I think people are the most important part of business. I've said, especially in the agency space, and you and I are more or less in the agency space. I know, in e-com and agency, all you have are the 3 Ps. There's people, programs, and processes. And programs and processes are commoditizable. And so then it centers on people. And I think what most entrepreneurs do wrong is they assume that people are all the same. Kind of like you were talking about 20-year-old Nathan did. 20-year-old Kasim did the exact same thing. It was like, oh, you're a cog, and I'm going to put the cog on the assembly line, and you're going to work the way that cogs are supposed to work, and it'll be predictable, and I'll just and that wasn't true at all. I found that a good hire was worth 100x a mediocre hire, and a bad hire cost me 10x just not having somebody. There's nothing more expensive than a cheap employee. So I love your model. I love the way that you're looking for people. And I love that you obviously have a heart and a passion for people. And that gets real weird to talk about. It gets a little touchy-feely, like we're supposed to be in business here and it's all down to the numbers and what's the bottom line. But really it's like, hey, how about putting people in a position to grow or to contribute or to feel like they're doing meaningful work? And then when I make an exit, how about I snap off a little piece for them too? And you're doing all those things, man. And it sounds like you've really been blessed because of it. So 1, I applaud you. 2, I'm curious, how many people do you currently employ?
Yeah, so it's kind of give perspective. Pre-up, we had thousands of people on the platform, but our internal team was 30 people when we sold it. Outsource School is pretty lean. It runs with 4 virtual assistants, and our bookkeeping businesses have about 15 people total, maybe 16 or 17, but about that.
That's awesome. And mostly in the Philippines still?
Yeah, with bookkeeping, we've got some U.S. bookkeepers and like marketers and stuff like that. But yeah, we have a lot of great bookkeepers out of the Philippines. At this point, we have relationships with so many people in the Philippines that if we need someone, whether it's bookkeeping or graphic design or whatever, we can get good referrals there. But we love hiring from the Philippines. The tip that I would give the listeners is if you're hiring a VA for the first time, you don't want to go out and hire like one person from the Philippines, one person from Pakistan, one person from India. You're just adding a lot of extra work to your plate. There's different communication styles, there's cultures, there's time differences. So if you're going to start hiring a VA, pick one place, and Philippines is a great place to start, not just cost of living, but also just communication and work ethic and family, which I always love to build family in our businesses, stuff like that. So that's definitely a great starting point.
Do you go to onlinejobs.ph? Where are you posting? Yeah, I know you have the relationships now, but if I wanted to start, where do I go?
Yeah, I mean, the big ones are Upwork, Fiverr, Online Jobs, and FreeUp. Those are the 4 that I would consider.
Yeah. I've had some issues in the Philippines. I've got employees all over. I'm currently obsessed with Latin America.
That's becoming hot. A lot of people have said that to me recently.
Dude, time zone is in alignment, more or less. They've got names that we can pronounce, which I know is true in the Philippines as well. And that sounds like a nuance or a nit, but it's not. And I realize that I'm probably about to get canceled, but I'm speaking as a human whose name people can't pronounce. Here's what's really interesting. This is true story. When my business partner's name is John, my name is Kasim. When John and I were starting up and we were trying to get a hold of somebody, do outreach, cold call, direct mail, whatever, if I called somebody 2, 3, 4 times and didn't get a call back, I'd have John call them. And then bam, they get a call back. Now, I'm not here to scream like, woke evangelist racism, because I don't think that's what that is. I think it's just discomfort. I think it's like, man, I don't really know how to say that. And so, but I know how to say John. And if you put your clients in a position to where it's like, oh yeah, this is, Miguel, that just feels easier and more accessible. So I like Latin America for that reason. They celebrate the same holidays that we do, generally speaking. You have the same, benefit from an arbitrage perspective, which is actually a tragedy if you really think about it. That's just because the petrodollar continues to keep everybody else's currency in the toilet. So we're, I won't jump on a libertarian bandwagon, I promise. What did I want to ask you? Here are my issues with the Philippines so far. One, it's really difficult to get people in the Philippines to work U.S. hours, probably because they do have such a strong emphasis on family. Do you just hurdle that, or how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so we will only hire someone to work U.S. hours if they've worked it before with success. We don't want to be their trial to work U.S. hours for the first time. That usually doesn't go well. But the BPO industry is big in the Philippines. And a lot of that is working U.S. hours. So you will find a lot of people that do it. I also like to create hybrids if possible. Like with FreeUp, we had 24/7 customer service. So we would try to do overlaps where someone would work till noon and then someone else would come on noon and work the rest to the nighttime. So we'll do a lot of hybrids like that to try to ease into it. But in situations that we need someone on U.S. hours, we definitely want to make sure they've done it before for years and are really okay with it. And to kind of get into onboarding, when we set expectations, we let people know what the schedule is and give them a chance to back out. Give them make sure they're 100% good with it and let them know, hey, you can't get all trained up and then come to me and tell me the schedule doesn't work. You're not going to have a job anymore. Like this job only works with the schedule. If that's the case, sometimes that's not the case and you have more flexibility there.
Second question, the Filipino culture, in my own personal experience, has a tough time with constructive criticism or communication. So I had a young lady who still works for me. Her name is Angelia. She's one of my favorite hires of all time. She's our onboarding manager. She's efficient, thoughtful, careful, smart, brilliant. And one day we found out that Angelia was doing the job of 2 people because we hired Angelia to do onboarding and we started to explode. And she just, it was you during Black Friday in your 20s, but Black Friday never ended. And she never told us. She was just like, oh, this is the expectation, I guess. And so, she's breaking her back. And I don't even know how it came to light. I know she didn't complain, but all of a sudden it was like, oh, dear God, Angelia needs help. How do you deal with she should have raised her hand and said, hey, this is, and so that's one half of the issue. The other half of the issue is if I ever do have to offer critical or constructive criticism, I notice that it lands so heavy. It's just like catastrophically damaging in a lot of ways. So what are you doing about the communication piece?
Yeah. So here's my tip. And there's more after that. Like they don't, a lot of times they don't want to speak up. They don't want to give feedback, take feedback. If they're managing other people, they'll be a little scared to do that. So for us, those initial hires that you make are so important because if you can get those initial hires to become leaders and to buy into feedback and criticism is good and speaking up and all of that, then any new person that comes into your company, you with the veteran that's been there that knows how things are done, and they'll kind of get that new person in line, for lack of a better word, doing things the way that you want. So that's kind of how we approach it. A lot of it's repetition at meetings. We have our 5 company values, and part of it is speaking up and don't be a hero and stuff like that. And we'll do these $1 questions where we'll quiz people on what the company values are. So we'll get people to just repeat it over and over in their mind, speak up, give feedback, stuff like that. And I guess my last tip, because a lot of people in the US come across, I guess, harsher than maybe they intended when they're giving criticism, use emojis. They love emojis. So if I'm starting a conversation, I'm like, hey, Anna, like, smiley face, what's going on? I got one quick thing for you. And for some reason that comes across way better than, hey, Anna, here's something they did wrong. I need you to do it better. And that small thing where they can see, hey, you're not pissed off, you're not angry, you're all on the same side, that goes a long way.
I had a friend give me a good analogy. He's from Eastern Europe, but he's been here a long, long time. And he goes, if you want to know how